All right, plan for the unforeseen. And this is on page 24. So what might come up that you didn't plan for? I tell this story every time I teach this class. I'll tell it really quick here. No joke. I was negotiating with an executive in China a few years ago, and it was a several-day negotiation. He got on an airplane and he left the country in the middle of the negotiation. I did not plan for that. That was definitely unforeseen. And so, yeah, I got stuck in Shanghai for a few days and I had to influence him to fly back to the country to finish. So believe me, the unforeseen can happen. Like crazy things can happen. Think about what you should not say. Think about what could get you upset. And think about how to really keep your composure, because some of these are really high stake and your emotions and your chemicals are going to be firing off too. So plan for the unforeseen. And then really think about if this is a really intense conversation and it may start to go south or get heated, always have kind of a plan B to exit the conversation. So you could say something like, I know this is a lot to take in today. So what I'd like you to do is take the night to think about it and we'll reconvene tomorrow and we'll finish going through the options so that we can get to an agreement. So think about a couple of good closing lines based on the situation. So if things go south, you can easily get out of it without it being awkward for you or for that person. All right, then we want to rehearse. So we went through a lot, right? There's a lot of pieces to think about this. And again, I don't want you to forget, don't get overwhelmed by all these questions or these pieces. Just know that these are tools so that you can piece together your conversation. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the less you're going to need some of this. But it's really important to use it as you're getting more comfortable. So let's talk about rehearsing. It's all about the opening line. And in fact, before we got on, Jen Griffin and I were talking about this and she's like, don't forget to talk about the opening line because this is really where it's at. So how many of you have sat down with someone who is your boss and they're going to try to influence you or talk to you about something and you were like, why are we here? Like you had no clue why you were there. They were stumbling over their words. And the whole time you can't hear them. Your brain's just going through like the last 2 weeks of your life. Like, did I say something? Did something go wrong? Like, you don't even know, right? And while you're doing that, you can't hear that other person. Has anyone ever sat down with their boss and had no idea why they were even there? And all they could think of was like, I don't even know. I just don't. Has that happened to anyone? Put yes in the chat box if you've ever had that situation happen to you. Yes, absolutely. Too many times. So don't be that person because you're in this class, so you're not going to be that person. So your opening line is critical. You have to tell people why you're there. So that could sound like, I want to sit down today with you because we have scholarships due. And I want to go through my thoughts on the scholarships, the research I've done so that you and I can make a good decision, a solid decision today. And then you can go through your conversation to see how very early you told someone why you're there and what the outcome could be. It could also sound like, I know that this project's been really difficult. And because of the difficulties, collectively, imagine a whole team of people around you, collectively, it's been tough on our relationships. So today, we're going to talk about how we're going to work together. And at the end of this, we're going to be a stronger team. Again, why we're here, what's going to happen at the end. That opening line couldn't be more important. There could be a million of them. And so if you really need to get a good opening line, you can throw your situation in the little chat box and I can throw you some ideas for a good opening line. But how many people really think about that opening line being why we're here and how we're going to end? Has that crossed your mind as much as it should? Yes or no? And throw that in the chat box. No. So yeah. So somewhat, yeah. So Teresa, no, right? That opening line, if you take nothing else from today, take away opening line because the opening line reduces the fear in that person and allows them to focus on what you're saying because they're not going through the Rolodex of the last 2 weeks of their life. And so really making sure you have that opening line is going to be critical for everyone. All right. And again, think of conversations as a loop, start with the end in mind, and don't leave that person confused on why they are there. So rehearse, rehearse, rehearse the opening line. And we talked a little bit about this. It's okay to combine approaches. Don't be afraid. You may think about the conversation, especially if you're maybe working with a group. You may tell the group, why we're here today is we're going to change our logistic partners and our vendor who delivers all of our product. I know that that scares us all. I know that's going to be some lifting for this team, but at the end of it, here's why. And we're going to do it because we're going to save X amount of dollars that we can reinvest or whatever reason why. And so at the end of this, I want you guys to see the value of this. Then you can inspire, right? Tell the value. And then you can start to say, what does that mean for everyone? And so you can change the approach. And at the end, there may be some compliance. And at the end, there's definitely a commitment. So when you think about your approach, don't be afraid to take those approaches and kind of space them out how you've structured that conversation. It really will make a difference and how the end comes out. So good. Awesome. So Christine, I have a great team that is dysfunctional when working together on certain projects. Would love an opening line for the meeting where we address this. Ooh, good one. All right. So everyone think of a good opening line. If you have one, throw it in the chat box, help Christine out. I'm going to think of one for Christine. All right. So you could say something like, you guys are a dream team. And when I think about the dream team, you are my dream team. From time to time, we're dysfunctional when we work together on certain projects. And I want that to stop. I want it to be a place where we are functional every single day. So today we're going to talk about our habits that create dysfunction. We're going to get really honest with those. And at the end, my hopes is that we are functional more often than we're dysfunctional. And then that will lead in. So how do you think about that, Christine, or anyone else? You can take that or, make a new one, but that's the one that came to my mind for a great opening line. Because again, what you did in that opening line or what I did is I truth told. You're a great team, but at times we're dysfunctional. You got to truth tell because that's the only way to make change is if people know the truth. Oftentimes we expect people to make change, but we don't tell them the truth. And so, what are we going to do? Writing notes, that's a great one. Good. And you're going to get the recording. So you can just fast forward to this section. Let's see, we're 52 minutes in and pick it up from there if you need it. So Jen, I like to acknowledge that what they do well, but then pivot to clear honesty around what the opportunity is. Absolutely. So sometimes you can say, here's what we're doing well. Here's our gaps. And today we're going to talk about the gaps, but we're going to leverage what we do well to fix those gaps. Because remember, you can never be someone you're not. Always leverage what you're already good at to fill in those gaps. Good. Anyone else have comments around combining approaches or opening lines? Throw it in the box and we will look at it. All right. So here's an important part, and everyone talks about debrief, but I'm going to tell you why debrief is important. And it's on page 26, and there's some questions and all that. But here's why debrief is important. If you want to be more influential and less directive, you're going to have to rewrite your neural pathways, right? So if you're constantly direct, then, your brain is lazy. It takes the fastest path to success that it knows, right? So it's going to keep taking that path. If you're going to rewrite it, not only do you have to practice and purposely do it, you're going to have to acknowledge it. And we don't do enough of acknowledging our progress because sometimes it's hard to see our own progress, which is good to work with a coach. I often acknowledge progress in people in our sessions that they didn't see themselves. Like you have to acknowledge that because it tells your brain that this is a good path and we have to stay on that. So when you debrief, think about what worked during the conversation. What skills did you develop? Where did you do well? And how do you take that and do even better next time so that more conversations or conversations continue to influence? And then if you didn't achieve your goal, what are the next steps? Which we talked about that, if it doesn't happen, do you just start over? And sometimes you have to start over and find a new approach. And it's important that we continue to think about what we did. What was the impact? What did we learn? How did we succeed? Even if it was a smidge, because a smidge is better than nothing. And if we failed, what did we learn? That's okay too. But that work, that debrief is about helping you rewrite your neural pathways so that you can use them more often and you can become a more influential leader.